Chapter 14. Out you go, kiddo. Dawn's dad stopped the car in front of their house. I've got to go pick up a few things at the store. Thanks for the ride, Dad. Dawn waved as her father drove off. When she turned to go inside, her gaze fell on the house next door. Suddenly she realized she hadn't spoken to the twins in over a week. She realized something else too. She missed them. After dropping her backpack on her front step, she headed over. Jake answered the door. "Oh," he said, his mottled green face blank. "It's you." "Hi." Dawn took a deep breath and managed a small smile. "Sorry I haven't been around much. School's been busy and—" Her voice trailed off as Jane appeared behind her brother. "What are you doing here?" Jane demanded. "We figured you decided you were too good to hang out with zombies like us." "It's not that," Dawn protested. "I mean, yeah, it was kind of a shock. But I definitely still want to be friends with you guys." Jake folded his arms over his chest. "You have a funny way of showing it. Seriously, we got you bolted." Dawn took a deep breath and blurted out the truth. "I was scared." "Okay. Scared of what?" "Zombies." Jane wrinkled her nose. "Get real." "Not scared of zombies." Dawn clutched the railing of their front steps. "Scared of becoming a zombie. When I see you guys like this, it's hard to not think about becoming one myself. I was afraid to face up to that." Jake looked confused. "But why are you so worried about that? Just because our percentages turned out to be wrong doesn't mean you have any more chance of turning than you always got. That's the thing." Dawn knew this was going to be the hardest part. "I didn't exactly tell you guys the truth about my percentage." Jane narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" "I don't have a 2% chance or whatever. I have a 75% chance." Both twins gasped. "What?" Jake exclaimed. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have lied." Dawn swallowed back a mouthful of saliva. "But I was afraid to tell you guys before. You talked a lot about your low percentage, and how you couldn't wait to get out of Vespertine and stuff." She shrugged. "I figured you might not want to be friends if you knew I'd probably be a zombie soon. I guess that's stupid, but I didn't really think it through at the time, you know." The twins looked at each other. There was a long moment of silence. Dawn held her breath. Would they forgive her? Finally, Jake sighed. "No, I get it," he said, leaning back against the door frame. "I guess we kind of sounded like anti-zombie snobs before, didn't we?" It didn't really sound like a question, but Dawn nodded. "Maybe a little." Jane wiped some drool away, then shrugged. "Yeah, sorry about that." She sounded a little bitter. But she flashed Dawn a wry smile. "Guess we learned our lesson, huh? I hope the kids at zombie school will forgive us," Jake added. I mean Vespertine Academy." "You guys are going there?" Dawn asked. Jane settled on the top step, wrapping her arms around her knees. "Our dad gave us a week off to adjust, but he wants us to start next week." "Hey, silver lining." Jake smiled at Dawn. "At least now all three of us can go there together." Yeah. Dawn realized that was a silver lining. All along, the worst thing about the idea of going zombie had been the thought of losing the twins as friends. Well, okay, maybe not the worst thing. But defy nightly top 10. "So what's been going on at school this week?" Jane sounded wistful. "Does everyone believe we have mono?" "That's what Dad says he told the school," Jake added. "Everyone believes it." Dawn hesitated. "By the way, We postponed the prank. It's tonight. Jane's eyes lit up. I almost forgot about that. I wish I could still go. Not me. Jake looked troubled. It actually doesn't seem like such a good idea to me anymore. Yeah. Dawn smiled at him, glad they were on the same wavelength. Being a zombie hadn't changed Jake except on the outside. He was still one of the coolest people she knew. So are you sure you want to go through with it, Dawn? He asked. No, I've never been sure about it, Dawn answered honestly, picking at a peeling flake of paint on the railing. The others think I'm meeting them at the town sign tonight. But I'm sort of thinking about doing a no-show. That was the only solution that had occurred to her on the ride home from school. Maybe if she didn't turn up to guide them through the woods, the others would give up and go home. Probably not a good idea, Jake said slowly. What if they come into town looking for you? Jane shrugged. So what? Mrs. Tompkins would spot them. I guess. But Jake still looked worried. They discussed it until Dawn spotted her father's car turning onto their block. Listen, I should go, she said reluctantly. Jake smirked. Uh-oh. She's bolting again. No way. Dawn crossed her heart with one finger. You guys can't get rid of me that easily. Cool. Jane smiled. Let us know what you decide to do tonight, okay? Definitely. Dawn smiled back. She realized that she already wasn't bothered by their new zombie appearances. See you. Jake reached over and touched Dawn's arm. See you, Dawn said, but though she didn't mind his looks, she couldn't help shuddering at the feel of his greenish, slightly slimy fingers. Jake quickly pulled his hand away, tucking it behind his back. Was that hurt in his red-rimmed eyes? Have a good birthday on Sunday, he said quietly. Maybe we can hang out after that. Dawn bit her lip, wishing she could take back that shudder. But the twins were already going back inside. Anyway, Jake was right. After Sunday, everything would be different. Dawn stared at the glowing blue numbers on her alarm clock. It was 20 minutes to 11. If she was going to meet the other kids at the town sign, she had to leave now. Mr. Marmalade was sleeping on her legs. He woke up when she slid them out from under him. Shh, she warned when he meowed. I've got to go. Her heart pounded, and she clutched the edge of her sheet as she thought about her options one more time. The first option was the most tempting. She could just not show up. After all, she'd probably be turning into a zombie on Sunday, which meant she'd never see Xander, Yasmin, or Zach again. But, as Jake had said, if Dawn didn't show up, the East Valley kids might wander into Vespertine looking for her. What if Mrs. Tompkins missed them just this once? What if the kids saw something they shouldn't? Dawn didn't like to think about what might happen then. Another option was to tell her parents what was going on, or maybe the Vespertine police. But that didn't seem like much of a plan either. She didn't want to get the East Valley kids in trouble. They were her friends, even if she never saw them again. Besides, she knew they didn't mean any real harm with their prank. And it wasn't like she could tell them what was really going on at Z Corp. Dawn swung her legs over the edge of the bed and stood up. There was only one option left. She had to go through with the prank. She didn't like the thought of messing up the lab, but at least it was just a little toilet paper. Maybe she could even volunteer to help clean it up tomorrow. Here I go, she whispered, giving Mr. Marmalade one last pat. She grabbed the flashlight out of her desk drawer on her way out of the room. There were definitely advantages to being a good kid all her life. Dawn had no trouble at all sneaking out of the house. Soon, she was wheeling her bike toward the sidewalk. Thick clouds hid the light of the nearly full moon, and it was hard to see more than 2 feet in front of her. She just swung her leg over the bike when two zombies materialized out of the darkness. Dawn almost screamed, but swallowed it back just in time. Shh, it's just us, a familiar voice whispered. Jake. Dawn peered at the zombies. Jane. What are you guys doing out here? Both twins were dressed in dark clothes and were holding their bikes. We decided we couldn't miss out on the fun, Jane whispered with a smirk. Actually, we realized it's sort of our fault you're stuck doing it, Jake added. We feel bad, and we wanted to be around for moral support. But the others. Dawn could only imagine what the East Valley kids would say if they saw the twins in their current state. Don't worry, we'll stay out of sight, Jane said. We can hide in the woods and watch. Her voice didn't sound sarcastic anymore. It sounded kind of sad. For a second, Dawn wasn't sure why. Then she figured it out. Jane probably missed her friends from VCJH. This might be her last chance to catch a glimpse of them. Okay, let's go, Dawn said. Having the twins along made her feel a little better. Might as well get it over with. The three of them biked across town. When they passed Mrs. Tompkins', her little mop dog started barking inside the house. Dawn and the twins quickly hid behind a bush across the road. Why's that fluffball barking at us? Jane whispered. Dawn just shook her head, afraid to speak. A second later, the door opened. Mrs. Tompkins peered out with her usual suspicious look. Her dog raced out onto the porch and sniffed the air. What is it, baby? The old woman's voice floated toward the kids in the still, silent night air. I don't hear anything. The dog's nose twitched. For a second, Dawn was sure it was staring right at her. Then it barked once more and sauntered back inside. I guess he smelled that we're all locals, Jake whispered. Come on, let's get out of here. A few minutes later, they reached the last curve in the road before the town sign. Jane and I had better stop here, Jake said quietly. We'll wait a few minutes, then double back and hide along the way to the lab. We can meet up after it's all over. Sounds good. Dawn clutched her handlebars tightly. I'd better go. It's already 11 o'clock. There wasn't much chance of meeting any traffic at this time of night, so she coasted right down the center of the hilly road. The moon had come out from behind the clouds, so it was easy to see where she was going. She was moving pretty fast as she rounded the curve, but when she caught a glimpse of the town sign, she hit the brakes so hard she almost upended her bike. Dawn. Yasmin spotted her and waved. We were just wondering if you were ever going to get here. Check it out, my sister's here too. Yeah. I can see that. Dawn gulped. Yasmin's sister had brought some friends. At least half a dozen high schoolers were lounging on and around the sign. Most of them were boys, and all of them looked pretty tough. Yo, is this the guide? One of the boys, a broad-shouldered kid in a leather jacket, stepped forward. He was swinging a baseball bat at his side. It's about time. Let's get this show on the road. Xander sidled over to Dawn, looking nervous. We didn't know they were coming, he whispered. I think they're planning to break into Z Corp.